So Samsung's reignition of the Wear OS market over the past 18 months has been great for the smartwatch space itself, with Google also entering the smart wearable market for the first time with the Pixel Watch. It puts pressure on Samsung to up its game. The Galaxy Watch 5 though has been the Wear OS leader since its release late last year, but how has it held up? Well, we've spent an extended period with this wearable to find out. Thanks for watching 9to5Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Samsung's recent design approach across all of its hardware areas has been to refine and own rather than redefine and reposition. In many ways, it's both a blessing and a curse, as the Galaxy Watch 5 is practically a clone of the Galaxy Watch 4 from late 2021. You're basically getting a round screen, sharp curves, flat edges, and plenty of metal. While the design is visually identical, Samsung has made changes in the right areas, at least as far as we're concerned. This includes an improved sapphire crystal coating screen. The benefits are said to be increased durability and scratch resistant, courtesy of a Mohs rating of 9. All you need to know is that the screen glass itself is extremely hard and it shouldn't scuff as easily. In our experience, it seems to have held up really well without any sort of protection. Having worn the Pixel Watch and the Galaxy Watch 5 in equal measure since the former wearable was launched, I think that while I do prefer Google's visual design language, Samsung's efforts result in something that I probably will stand up to my daily use and abuse a lot more readily. That said, like the previous generation, there are risks associated with that design. Paint itself can chip and flake at the edges of the aluminium chassis, although I haven't seen that, but I will say flat screens and sharp edges do make more sense for this form factor, even if a fully round watch can seem much more appealing. I'm not complaining. There are plenty of reasons I do love the aesthetics, and the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro does offer a bigger, bolder option if you want or need a rugged Wear OS smartwatch. The loss of the classic model though, I do think is something to bemoan, as the rotating bezel helped truly differentiate it from the most popular smartwatch brands out there, and we do lose that this time around. Where I wish a change were made though is in that default watch strap. The annoyance of the blocked off design on the edges of the chassis mean that I find that I need to fit this watch a little bit tighter than I would to prevent a wrist wobble or constant readjustment when wearing. If like me though you don't like that default silicone style strap and clasp, then the 20mm lug mechanism is really a godsend. When you can get compatible stretchy fabric bands or a 5-pack of those for under $15, I think it's a no-brainer to pick one up for that extra comfort and security. One of the biggest compliments though that I can pay Samsung with the Galaxy Watch 5 is that if you care about Wear OS, it's probably the best experience out there. Visually, it's an extension of One UI in all of the right and all of the wrong ways. If you've used a Galaxy phone, you'll probably understand what I mean by that statement. Things feel like Wear OS though, because this is definitely Google's software at heart, but with little changes that can sometimes be a bit disorientating. Swiping up into the app grid is one such change that I personally can't get behind. Similarly, the leftmost notification section is great for organisation purposes, but feels like it's siloed away for better or worse. Surely, having access to your notifications is more useful than all applications, at least for most people on a day-to-day basis, given that there's a lack of huge apps or a huge app library on Wear OS in general. That's a question for another day though. Many of these complaints are just carried over from the previous generation. That said, for all intents and purposes, the One UI build pre-installed is the same. You do get a few more watch face options, but overall I haven't been able to tell the difference in most areas. The Google Assistant does ship with the Galaxy Watch 5 pre-installed now, after arriving in the Watch 4 back in mid-2022. For those wondering, the new Assistant runs fine, but it isn't a game-changing update over the previous Wear OS 2.0 version, at least in our testing. I am a huge advocate though for Samsung's menu approach across mobile and wearable platforms. Sure, I wish that we had true consistency across all Android-powered devices, at least in this regard, but adding hyperlinks to specific settings sections is a great touch, at least in my opinion. However, you could argue that this is bad user interface design if the initial process of finding specific toggles and settings options is not clear without using such a solution. Even as well, without a chipset bump, this still runs on the Exynos W920 and 1.5GB of RAM. Everything is super smooth and snappy on the Galaxy Watch 5, and I do think the performance has improved with updates. While I've been pleasantly surprised with what the Pixel Watch can do, given its really modest internals, which are from 2018 after all, it just doesn't quite match up to the slick Watch 5 experience, even when you put these side by side. There's still a performance hit with the wearable, the Watch 5, when you reach that sub 20% battery level. Until that limit is reached though, I have to say it's smooth sailing absolutely all the way. Although this isn't Samsung's fault, I do have some complaints with the Play Store, at least with Wear OS itself. Over the past 18 months, things have started to improve, and Google's increased push with first-party applications and updates for those does help out a lot. You'll likely find a workaround or an app though that you will maybe require on your watch, but don't expect to have everything that you would like catered for. That is just a little bit of an annoyance with Wear OS, at least at this point in 2023. One huge annoyance that is still impossible to ignore is the lack of features or feature lock for non-Samsung smartphone users. I think missing out on features is one thing, but actively preventing people from using on-device sensors, unless you do have a Galaxy phone on hand, is actually nothing short of shady. It's really disappointing from Samsung, and it's just annoying that this is still being done by one of the biggest players in the Android wearable space when others don't seem to do so, Google included. You also still as well need to use a Galaxy wearable application to get paired and manage all on-device content. Although it is a little bit of an annoyance, it's not as much of a major problem as it allows for more controls that would ordinarily be available within that dedicated Wear OS app on Android phones, so it does get a pass in our book. Most of the major improvements in the Galaxy Watch 5, at least over the Galaxy Watch 4, are going to be found in the bioactive sensor, which is at the heart of the fitness tracking suite on this wearable. While this should mean more accurate data, or at least your data should be more accurate, you're not getting any major new modes, at least for fitness tracking. You do get a few extras in areas like sleep patterns, including the new sleep coaching mode, and snoring detection doesn't actually need to be have your phone around to pick that up. It can be done on device. Are these killer additions though? I'd say no, but they are welcome. I do find that while the sleep state figures or sleep stage figures at least seem accurate to my eye, it would be hard for me to truly know without going to see a specialist or sleep expert. I would say take all of this extra or new data with a healthy helping of salt. That's basically what we're trying to say here. Combined with these solid body composition measurements, which crossover here from the previous generation, and the extensive workout modes available on tap, and although you're not getting things like Garmin or Coros level accuracy, the Galaxy Watch 5 is an attractive option for most people that just want a little bit of everything without having too many compromises, and that all important compatibility and cohesion with your Android smartwatch. The thing that annoys me most is though that even some 5 months after it was released, the skin temperature sensor is still not yet active or enabled on the Galaxy Watch 5, although it was included in some of them early marketing materials. Given those promises before and after launch, the fact that it's not available is frustrating and a little bit disappointing in equal measure. Never buy a device on promises of future functions. The hardware is here though, so the ball is firmly in Samsung's court on this one. It would be a great combination with the SPO2 sensor for those concerned, given the resurgence of COVID-19 though in recent months, as they can be used in tandem to help give you early warning signs, although it isn't outright proper diagnosis. In our experience, the Samsung Health Suite though still offers a far wider and more appealing set of metrics than the Fitbit application, which is used on the Pixel Watch. You don't need a membership here or subscription to access things like historical data, and it's all presented in an easy to digest, equally visually appealing manner. One thing I will note is that the auto workout tracking is still one of the major reasons that I do prefer the Watch 5 over many other Android-based wearables. This just makes walk and run tracking completely seamless, meaning you're less worried about picking up things like even a short jaunt around the block or even a dog walk, that kind of thing. That's what I've been using it for specifically. The GPS data has improved slightly over the previous generation, but I would say it still remains slightly imperfect, and sometimes it can be wildly inaccurate. I wouldn't call this a complete deal breaker though, as I only need basic GPS tracking. If you want higher or more accurate GPS tracking, you probably want to look at a dedicated fitness watch. Lifespan isn't always guaranteed with any piece of technology, at least not wearable hardware, although Samsung's decision to up the internal cell size by over 10% on both the 40mm and 44mm Galaxy Watch 5 devices, respectively, has been a bit of a masterstroke, at least as far as we're concerned. While the Galaxy Watch 4 was capable of lasting up to 1.5 days at the top end with low or light usage, the Watch 5 can stretch to as far as 2 days with similar usage patterns. Well, while that isn't the best in the business, it's certainly better than most wearables that we've tested over the past few years. When using all of the on-device functions though, as you'd expect, you're more likely to hit the charger at the end of the day, with a little bit of headroom to spare always being appreciated. When you add in the 10-watt charging via that magnetic puck, it means that you shouldn't have to wait quite as long to get things up and running again, and this is among the fastest charging Wear OS watches out there, and it does make a huge difference day to day. It's one of the best things that Samsung has added with this new wearable. So to wrap everything up, we did have high hopes for Google's own Pixel Watch, and while we will say that it's certainly a solid contender, the Galaxy Watch 5 definitely remains at the summit of Android-based wearables for a little while longer. The design itself is more durable, the battery life a little more consistent, and the entire package is actually cheaper than its bigger, slightly better brother, the Watch 5 Pro, and of course the Pixel Watch itself. We will say locking features to Samsung devices is definitely a major sore point that is hard to ignore. Given that the Pixel Watch does let you use every feature without inhibiting it in the same way, it does make a case for all Android users in ways that the Galaxy Watch 5 is slightly unable to do. Because we're still waiting as well for Wear OS watches with Snapdragon W5 and W5 Plus chipsets. Even though this does use the older Exynos W920 chip, it absolutely smokes the current competition on the market. It might be worthwhile waiting a little while to see what that long overdue competition has to offer in that performance regard, but just as we said last year, there is no outright perfect smartwatch that will be right for everyone. The Galaxy Watch 5 though still hits enough high notes to be considered the best smartwatch for most Android users as far as we're concerned. The pricing, the performance, even the software update schedule, which is set at 4 years, and that fitness tracking do usurp the Pixel Watch, which itself is a very good option. And although this device is a little bit older, it's a far better buy in our book for most of you out there looking for a Wear OS smartwatch to pair with your Android phone. That's just basically a long way of saying that despite some niggling flaws, this is still the best Wear OS watch that you can buy. I'd love to hear your thoughts though. Let me know if you actually picked up the Galaxy Watch 5 in whatever size or guise down in the comment sections below. But until next time, this is Damien with 9to5 Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.